We are out here, Imaging USA. Vanessa Joy, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me
This
on your
is-
luxurious balcony
Yeah.
in the mall here with the waterfall soothing this conversation.
Yes. It's good white noise. It will put you to sleep if you spend too much time out here,
I can see that.
but it's been nice. How has your experience been here? I want to talk quickly about the conference
imaging?
and imaging and also just conferences in general, WPPI, and how those, have you found them valuable in your life? Why are you here?
Why am I here? Well, I get paid to be here, so let's just make that a truth and make that known. But on top of it, I have always been, this is going to sound bad, like a conference whore. I really love going to them. Ever since I was younger, my first one was Photo Plus in New York City. And it's just like skipping through the aisles of a photography candy store. And it's fun. Education is there. And for a while, though, they got depressing, photo conferences. They got smaller and smaller. No one was coming. And then COVID hit, so then they were non-existent. And this show, Imaging USA 2023, I feel like is the first one that I have sensed some life in again.
That's nice.
Right?
I'm
Isn't
happy
that
to hear
nice? So I'm really excited for WPPI, which is coming up next.
Yeah.
And then Shutterfest. Maybe the community is back to realizing the value of conferences and the community, education, hands-on photo shoots, all the things.
Speaking of community, have you found a community here, and have you found that helpful as kind of like a solo photographer entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I found it a while ago, and it wasn't just at imaging. You do sometimes see the same people from imaging to WPPI, especially if you're a speaker or on that level. We go to all the shows because we get to, and it's fun. But it's also the people that I've met that have helped me with my pricing along the way, or have encouraged me that, yes, I can do this on my own. That was from somebody I met at a workshop, at an in-person event. So there's a lot of aspects to it. That, and you do find some good drinking buddies and karaoke buddies and all the good things. That
Secret karaoke's a
secret
thing.
karaoke events that only certain people know about.
Amazing. So let's take you back to more closer to the beginning of your career.
Okay.
So you're getting into wedding photography. What does that look like? Is there a moment where you're like, I'm going to be a wedding photographer?
Oh, man. I did it the old school way. And you don't see it as much anymore. I worked for another wedding photographer for about 5 years before starting my own business. And I actually never thought I would start my own business. That just wasn't in my mindset. And this is going to sound super like I'm so old, but it was pre-social media. It was pre most photographers even having a website. So there wasn't a lot of outside influence that wasn't in your physical circle. So I worked for a guy who was my high school photography teacher. I worked for him for 5 years until my friend Kenny Kim, who was a speaker at all these events, and I had met him at one point. He asked me, why aren't you doing this for yourself? And I was so confused by what he meant. I'm like, what do you mean for myself? He's like, you could own your own business and shoot your own weddings, right? And I think I said no, but then I believed him and it was like, oh, that's a possibility. Whereas now, I think that's the first thing people think of, right? They get a camera or they want to be a photographer. Okay, let me go be a photographer, not let me go find a photography job. So that landscape has changed a lot, which would make these conferences more valuable, I think.
Absolutely. So how did your first couple of jobs come in? So you decided to go from...
I love this story. My first personal jobs came in, one from a DJ, and the second one from a photographer who was already booked for the day. You have to have community. They're going to send you jobs, not competition. It's other people and friends that you make in the industry. They send you work, word of mouth, but not through, clients. Yeah. What about you? I don't know your
My first job, Craigslist.
Amazing.
I want to do this, but I'll only do 4 hours.
Okay.
And they, at that level, there's no trust. They don't really trust that you're going to show up.
Nope.
So they actually hired a second team to come in.
Oh, my word.
And I think I kind of knew roughly what I was doing. That team was shooting everything on like a Takana, I think 11 to 18 millimeter lens. And I'm like, I don't know what they're doing, but maybe they know, because they have like their flash packs and everything. I'm like, maybe they know and maybe I'm wrong.
Flash bracket.
And then I saw the photos and I'm like, I should have tried to take more control. But I'm like 19, 18, like introverted. Like I'm not going to compete with the 45-year-old guys that have been doing this for a long time. So I'm like, I'm third photographer today. And I got portfolio.
Okay. Were they like, what are you doing here?
I don't know we just kind of tried to coexist, and it was weird. And now,
so
yeah.
weird.
So put in your contract that you're the one.
Sole photographer. It's fun now. I put it in my contract. I'm the sole photographer. Yes, this includes both videographers and DJs that bring their own photographers. And I never make a stink about it unless that photographer is literally getting in the way and ruining the people. But now everybody brings a photographer. You have to for marketing.
Yeah, it's very true. So you got your first couple jobs?
Got my first couple jobs. The first one was $500, 4 hours. And I got a bad review and deserved it. My photos sucked. They sucked. It was low light. I didn't know how to handle it. And back then you couldn't just bump your ISO. It was like ISO 800 and probably the equivalent of like shooting on the R5 at 102,000. It was so bad. I remember trying to re-edit it for them. Like, oh, well, I'll try some noise deduction. And nothing. No. Oh. Garbage in, garbage out.
Well, does that stress you out? So when you're getting in, you're not working for your ideal clients yet. Is that a struggle?
No, in the early days, everything was a struggle. I was always nervous. You have nightmares beforehand. You walk into these weddings, and when you are below average, or even at the average price, you get one of two things when you walk into weddings. You either get the dumpy hotel room that they splurged on you, which is a compliment, right? They value the photography the most, but everything else just really sucks and is really difficult to photograph. Or they didn't value photography at all, and you walk into $1 million wedding, which happens. And then you kind of feel like crap because you realize like they spent more on that one peony bouquet than they did on you. And that gets thrown in the garbage. So where are they going to put you when you're done?
That's very true. I've done a few of those weddings even recently. And it's a surprise because I feel like when you're into your career, I would say that most of my weddings are for ideal couples. And then when it's not, it's like a bit of a shock. And you're like, oh yeah, it's a humbling experience that not everybody values. Like we live in this bubble that wedding photography is the most important thing ever. We live and breathe it. And we're all out here, and our community is that network. And yeah, not everybody believes that, I guess.
No, they don't. And even I started, I think 3 years ago now, I always include an album because I don't want to take photos that you're not going to cherish enough to print. And hello, this is your wedding. You're telling me you're not going to cherish those photos enough to print them? Like, that's crazy. But I had somebody, they were like, oh, but it's our second wedding. Like, our kids aren't going to want this because they're kids from the other marriage. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm thinking about this wrong. But you are definitely not my ideal client at all.
Oh, so how do you find your ideal clients now?
Right now, it's word of mouth, but also relationships I have with venues and planners a lot of the time. I'm shooting my team is shooting roughly 25 weddings a year. My goal is to take 15 of them. They take 10 right now. And that's a happy place for me. Yeah. And usually in an ideal client, usually.
And then in terms of kind of over the past kind of 10 years of your career, has it mostly been venues referring in and word of mouth, or has the landscape changed recently?
I used to do a lot more on Instagram. I feel like it's a pendulum. So we're one-person business owners. We can't really do everything all at once, nor do we have marketing budgets to do it or hire someone. So we tend to push everything on relationships, and I'm focusing on them. So of course now the venues and the planners are recommending me, where 5 years ago I was really heavy focusing on Instagram and finding clients that way. So I would get tons of bookings from Instagram. And then sometimes, like between you and I, we tend to watch that pendulum swing towards all the education that we're doing. So then I would find my clients coming in that were other photographers, or not even having enough bookings in because I wasn't concentrating on the weddings. I'm concentrating on the education. So I feel like it's just constantly a pendulum of what's happening in your life. What are you prioritizing? Because whatever you put your effort to, that's what's going to be profitable, not the random thing in the corner you're not paying attention to.
Yeah. From, I guess, like a perspective of just kind of a life happiness perspective, how does that play into your business decisions?
A lot. And it didn't to begin with, because when you first start out, it's like, no, money? Yes, thank you. Yes, I will take your money. But now it's like, I could take your money, or I could go to my kid's soccer game. Granted, I don't tell my kids that their soccer game is worth $10,000, but it is. And ultimately, that's a decision you're making. But it hurts when you make those decisions. But ultimately, your life is so much happier. So I have been deciding to do that. And that's part of why I started an associate team. And I'm still taking on a certain number of weddings. That's why I raised my prices. So I I don't even have to say no. They say no, but it works out. And that's why I'm focusing on education and started a subscription platform, because I want a little bit more balance. I want a little bit more time at home, or even behind my computer versus holding a camera.
Yeah.
It's, it hurts. Gear's heavy. I have this like forearm massager. Have you seen this thing?
Yeah.
You've seen it. It's so good. If we do nothing else from this podcast, get the forearm massager. I'm sure he will link it below.
Especially if you're on the 28 to 70 F2.
Yes. It is incredible. Explaining it to someone who hasn't seen it, though, is a little laughable. It's like it's a vice, but it has balls, and you rub it up and down your forearm.
Yeah. When you're scrolling on your Facebook or Instagram feed, you see it, you're like, what is that?
What?
And you're like, oh, no, maybe that's helpful.
I guess that is
should order one.
Yeah.
So what does your, at least the photography part of your business, what does that kind of look like now? Is there a family element? Is there a portrait headshot element? Or is it just
portrait
primarily
headshot?
weddings?
Definitely portrait headshot. I very rarely photograph families. I don't like doing it. Not that I don't like families. I don't even love photographing my own kids. It's a kid thing. I love, more than anything, I love photographing women. They're just beautiful, obviously beautiful on a wedding day, but also when I get to be creative, which is another reason why I've swung a little bit more towards education, because in addition to not having to get paid for your time, right, you get paid for your knowledge in that case, I get to choose what I want to shoot. I'm not just photographing what I get hired to, and then that decision is with the client. And a lot of times, most of the time, I mean, you have a little bit of control, right? Show your ideal client and what you want to shoot. But I don't necessarily get like all the diversity I want out of there. But when I get to hire models, I get everything I want. And I get to photograph who I want and where I want to. And a random vision on Tuesday, I'm doing a live broadcast to my photo insiders. We are photographing, it is a wedding venue, but it looks like it's Spain in Texas. We are doing a Romeo and Juliet death scene inspired shoot with fireworks. Who gets fireworks for their own style shoot? It's just ridiculous.
That's fun.
But I mean, weddings are lovely. I still love doing them. The energy's great. But ultimately, you photograph 90% of the day because you have to, and 10% of the day because you want to. So when you start going into portraits or just doing things for your own creativity, that's when you get to shoot 90% what you want to and 10% what you have to.
Yeah.
It's nice.
In terms of building your portfolio, I feel like you're also kind of doing this now, that you're creating the work that you want to maybe market, maybe get paid for. And did you find in weddings, did you focus on styled shoots to get the work in your portfolio?
It's a balance, right? I think styled shoots are necessary, and those types of workshops are absolutely crucial to learning as a photographer, building community, building your portfolio. I think there was this splurge probably in like 2015, and maybe it's just there with newer photographers in general, because again, it is necessary, but there was this splurge of styled shoots. The only time it hurts you is when your work that you show on your website or social or wherever is any more than 30% styled shoots, I would say. Because more than that, your clients are expecting styled shoot results on a crazy hectic wedding day. And I think that's a cultural thing that's happening. I'm starting to see the shift. I don't know if you are, but my clients, because of Pinterest and Instagram and all the visual information that they're getting from styled commercial shoots, they now think are normal. Or even if it's just they're seeing the best of 7,000 weddings during their wedding planning, they expect the best of those 7,000 weddings to occur on their wedding day. And I've had to make some shifts this year, like just set expectations a little bit more clearly. I've started delivering more photos than I normally do. I would usually do 800 to 1,000. Now I'm like, I think we need 1,500 to 2,000. Because in a way, these clients are right in expecting a little bit more. We can deliver a little bit more. And they want it. Yeah. Do you see that? Is it just me?
I think it's also mirrorless cameras that I just now shoot 3 times more on a wedding day.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is good and in focus, and candids are so easy. I shoot always from my screen, and I can just like walk around a room, and I know I can kind of just be even glancing at my LCD, and I know that I have the frame, and then it'll just hit the eye autofocus, and it's going to
be in focus.
Yeah, if I have like 10 minutes in cocktail hour, I can get all the photos I need.
Right.
Whereas I used to almost have to have a second photographer cover that for the entire hour to get even roughly the same yield.
So true.
So I think technology, maybe let's talk a little bit about technology and what
Okay.
you're using and
Yeah.
anything that you might be excited for this year or have been excited for past year.
Right. Well, for me, it is the Canon RF 135 1.8 image stabilized lens. I've been waiting for that RF lens forever. It's one of my favorites. Right now, I'm using the Canon EOS R5 and then the 28 to 70 f2, which is the reason why I need that 4-hour massager because it is so heavy, but it's lighter because it replaces 3 lenses. I don't have to carry as much. So that one comboed with the 135, it's like, that's all you need. The other things are nice, obviously a macro, and the 85 is beautiful for portraits, but bags have gotten lighter.
Yeah.
And then the A2, I just started using the ProPhoto A2.
Yeah.
I haven't used it yet. It's literally in the box, but once I charge a battery, let me tell you, I'm going to get going.
That's awesome. Do you enjoy, do you feel like you get to stay more in the experience whenever you just don't have to be switching lenses from like a 24 to 35?
Yep. And not even more in the experience, but more connected with my clients. I think since mirrorless, I've been able to have a better relationship with my clients while we're photographing versus always having the camera up to my face, which means it's covering your mouth, which means you can hardly communicate with them. It's a better experience. You don't have to futz with your gear. You don't have to reshoot that or zoom in and make sure it's in focus while you're photographing because you just know it's in focus.
Yeah.
These cameras know how to do the job.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about efficiency on a wedding day. I feel like you have some slight efficiency hacks when it comes to doing a portrait session in a very quick period of time. Do you want to kind of talk us through that?
Sure. So I have a thing called speed posing, speedposing.com, and it is a method. And honestly, it's not groundbreaking. I don't think it's groundbreaking, but it is a method where you are stuck for time. You can pump out an entire family photo list in like 7 minutes or less. You can have 5 minutes with the bride and groom and still photograph enough for 20 album spreads. And it comes down to circles, I call them. I call them crop circles, head circles, and body circles. Without giving too much away, you're moving your feet, you're moving their feet, and you're varying the crops and angles that you're getting so that you're using your time very efficiently. I wouldn't say it's the most creative in the world, but it gets it done.
Yeah. Do you find, are you usually somewhat in control of the photography schedule for a wedding day and you can give yourself the time you need now?
I do, but then hair and makeup runs late. Yeah. Or, oh my gosh, I had an officiant almost not make it to the ceremony, so we had to like wait for that. And things happen on a wedding day where you just have to make up the time because anything happens. That's what gets cut in the photography. I don't know how we got to the bottom of the totem pole there. Like, cut the shrimp, not the photography.
What does an ideal kind of wedding timeline look like for you in terms of the photography?
How much time? I like to get to wherever they're getting ready about 2 hours before either they leave for the ceremony or leave for the first look. Some of my couples see each other before, some don't. That's fine. If they see each other beforehand, I want to plan their first look 2 hours before the ceremony. That gives me enough time to do first look, bridal portraits, and then an hour before the ceremony, I schedule a half an hour for families. It doesn't take that long, but that's what I schedule. Buffer room, we're good. Sometimes I have to shoot everything during cocktail hour, though, and that's super fun. But yeah, I like a good 2 hour chunk. Half of an hour is really buffer time. Probably an hour and a half is solid shooting time for all the portraits, all the families.
Very cool. And in terms of, I guess, going into reception, are you using flash now?
I am using flash. I've started to not as much. I use it for dancing photos, but if I have a videographer that's there and he's using lights to light the speech, I'll take my flash off. Why do I need my flash? I can just use that. One of my favorite things to do if there's a videographer is I don't have to set up off-camera flash either, because then his lights are just my kicker lights. It's funny, I had an assistant work with me. She's like, you don't set up flash? I'm like, why would I set up flash when he already did it for me? Like, now I can just complement that. It's totally fine. So I will be as lazy as humanly possible is what this comes down to. Carry a less heavy piece of gear. So if I can take my flash off, I will. And then I get to the point where I'm bored at the reception, creatively bored. So then I start doing like direct flash and motion blur, and we just get a little crazy.
That's very fun. And then after the wedding day, what does your workflow look like?
I send everything out. So Freedom Edits is who I use. They color correct, export, and then upload to my online gallery system, which is Enview. We do pre-design. I'm very big on product. If you are not doing product, you're leaving more than half your money on the table. It really is incredible how much you can make. But we do a pre-design, and usually through the process of editing their photos, delivering the pre-design, we actually have an appointment where we sit down with them. We show them the pre-design, but then they customize it. We do whatever we want right in front of them. But by the time all of that is done, we're totally done with them. Digital files delivered, albums delivered within 3 to 6 months from their wedding.
Very nice.
That's amazing, because I don't want to carry that wedding next year.
No, that was my issue with albums, is they all come back in November, even if I put out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people do the process differently. That would happen to me when I let them pick their wedding photos, because they would never do that, because that's really overwhelming. They don't know what to pick. They don't know how to tell the story. We know how to tell the story. So the second I changed that and I started doing pre-designs, the albums look better. They came back faster. I do hold the high-resolution photos hostage until they do that design with me for 2 reasons. 1, that makes them come back. But 2, I also do complimentary retouching on anything they want in the album. So I want to give them those finished files, and those files aren't finished till we do the album. And that works. I did speak to another photographer. He's a volume photographer in Texas. And he does not give them any products in the initial package, but within their first year of marriage, so by their first year anniversary, if they come back to order albums, they get 25% off. So he doesn't hold anything hostage, doesn't like pre-design or sell beforehand, but that 25% off is enough to get almost all his clients to come in and order.
That's very cool.
Whatever they want within a year.
Yeah. What are you the most excited for this year? Looking at this year,
Oh,
it can be anything. It could be gear. It could be a marketing thing.
you
It
know,
could be a destination wedding.
I am excited. I'm doing a workshop in Italy, and it's not a wedding photography workshop. It is people are coming, everyone from like a hobbyist to people that do this professionally to people that don't do weddings, just do portraits or just do landscapes. And we're just going to Italy. We're drinking wine. We're making pasta. We're taking pictures. We're hanging out at a cafe in Italy to edit some photos that we took. I'm just so excited for that. I love community. I love all this, but going to a remote place to shoot, relax, do what we love, and drink some wine.
Very
That's
nice.
going to be amazing.
Are there any spots left, or is that sold out?
It's not sold out. It's half sold out right now.
Okay.
So
So if you're
you
listening
can,
to this,
if you're listening to this, yeah, you can go to my Instagram. There's a highlight there. It says Italy trip, and you'll get info. So half sold out. There'll only be 24 of us, I think, is what we're maxing it. So it'll be a small group regardless.
very
It'll
cool.
be good. You want to come? You should come.
I might.
You
I might. Where can people go to find out more about you?
You could go to vanessajoy.com. I have a little menu item. It says for photographers. Head there. And then I'm on YouTube. Are we on YouTube? Is this for YouTube?
We're on YouTube.
So you can find me here. It's just youtube.com/Vanessa Joy.